Well, I'm here. I know some of you got impatient, but no worries. It's 8:30 p.m. We're ready to get started. This is such a fascinating time, not only for the 49ers, but it feels like the entire NFL is waiting on pins and needles for which team Deshaun Watson is going to decide to play for. There are four finalists. He's meeting with the final one tomorrow. I believe Atlanta's meeting is tomorrow. He's already met with three teams, including Cleveland. Baker Mayfield is throwing a hissy fit because the Browns talked to Deshaun Watson. And to me, the vibes coming out of Cleveland are that they want to move on from Baker Mayfield, regardless of whether or not they land Deshaun Watson. But either way, the Watson situation is indeed a domino for other stuff to begin falling. So for the entire row of dominoes to start tumbling over, you got to get that first one to fall. And it feels like the tension is just building and building and building around the NFL. I think Josina Anderson tweeted today that a lot of free agents who are still out there are low key waiting. Those are her quotes. Are low key waiting to see what Deshaun Watson's going to decide, because there's a realization that this is not just about Deshaun Watson. This is about other potential landing spots for quarterbacks. And in the case of Jimmy Garoppolo, you talk about potential Indianapolis Colts interest, and Ben Albright, whose opinion I respect a lot in the industry about the potential machinations behind the scenes. He says that the interest level from the Colts and the market level and the value for Jimmy Garoppolo has waned. And that makes total sense because there is no market outside of the Colts potentially for Jimmy Garoppolo while we're waiting for teams to decide on Deshaun Watson. Somebody asked me, well, why are the 49ers waiting? Garoppolo doesn't have a market now anyway. I'm like, that's the point. That's why they're waiting. They're waiting for the market to resuscitate itself, because right now you have teams like Atlanta, you have teams like Cleveland, obviously. You got the four teams that are in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They're all focused on Deshaun Watson, who, when he's available, when there's not a cloud hanging over him, and it's debatable how much of a cloud there is hanging over him right now, but the criminal charges won't be there, is a guy that's in that top five. So he's going to be the first fancy house that needs to be purchased before the value of the other houses in the neighborhood. So when that domino falls, then all of a sudden, whoever doesn't get Deshaun Watson, they can start looking at who they might want to get. And in the case of Cleveland, it looks like they may want to be shipping Baker Mayfield away, regardless of whether or not Deshaun Watson chooses them. So it's complex. It's fascinating. It will have league-wide ramifications. And I guess it's fun to talk about. And that's what we're doing right now. By the way, 49ers news, they tendered Azeez Al-Shaair at the second round level, $3.986 million. A little bit earlier, news came out from Matt Barrows. The 49ers tendered Daniel Brunskill at the original level, which is $2.43 million. To explain, that does not mean that Azeez Al-Shaair is a lock to be on the 22 49ers. It means that the 49ers have offered Azeez a contract worth about $4 million, that amount on your screen. And now other teams can offer him more. If somebody else offers Al-Shaair more, say the Kansas City Chiefs offer him $5 million, $1 million more than the 49ers will have a chance to counter the Chiefs' offer with the same amount. And if the 49ers decline to do so, then Al-Shaair will be able to sign with the Chiefs, and the 49ers will receive a second-round draft pick as compensation. In the case of Daniel Brunskill, he's cheaper, but that's because the 49ers opted for the right of first refusal tender. That means that if the Chiefs offer Brunskill $4 million, the 49ers can decide to match that offer. But if they decide not to, they will not get draft pick compensation. So you pay for the level of tender. 49ers decided to pay more for Azeez Al-Shaair, $3.986 million, than for Daniel Brunskill, because they want to be insulated in case somebody does try to snatch Azeez Al-Shaair. The only other restricted free agent for the 49ers this year is Kentavious Street. And it doesn't seem like the 49ers tendered him. I don't know if they declined to tender him or if that still might be coming, but I would guess that they didn't. I thought that they would tender Brunskill and Al-Shaair. I thought it would be 2 out of 3. So far, that's following along with predictions. Now, there's also exclusive rights free agents. 49ers have taken care of all those guys, except for Juwan Jennings, whom they've offered a tender, but they want to keep Juwan Jennings around for longer. And Juwan Jennings is also interested in a longer deal. So negotiations are ongoing with Juwan Jennings. The exclusive rights free agent tender is much less restrictive than the RFA that you see here on the screen for Azeez Al-Shaair. The exclusive rights tender means that player can only negotiate with the current team, the 49ers. So Jennings has to play for the 49ers if he wants to play next year. But the 49ers are interested in giving Jennings a longer-term deal so he stays under team control for 2023 so they don't have to go through this process that you see on the screen right now with Jennings next season. They don't want to have to deal with another big year from Jennings, even better presumably than 2021, and then have to sit down at the table with him as a restricted free agent when other teams can offer him money. If the 49ers want to avoid that, they pay Jennings now for a longer period of time when his price is cheaper. I think that would be a smart cap move because I think that Juwan Jennings is a dog, and I think he's a guy that's going to earn everything that he gets moving forward. So that's the business right now that the 49ers are trying to take care of. Earlier in my previous show, I talked about the to-do list before 1 p.m. tomorrow. Tender decisions. Well, the 49ers are doing part 1 of that to-do list right now. Al-Shaair has been taken care of with his decision, and Daniel Brunskill has been, and I think they're saying no to Kentavious Street's tender. Maybe that changes. Maybe I could look to see if there's an update. I got Twitter open right here, but so far as I know, it's Brunskill and Al-Shaair that have been tendered. To-do number 2 is clear up cap space to get under the cap so that the 49ers can potentially carry Jimmy Garoppolo once that ship sails at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. Because if the trade market, if that Watson situation has not been resolved yet, at 1 p.m. Pacific time at the start of the new league year, then the 49ers are going to want to carry Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster and fit him under the cap so they could continue to have him as an asset. Because to me, this, that's what I said earlier. Outside of a lot of this, we know absolutely nothing. And if you don't know anything, well, then you probably should hold on to an asset that can return even greater assets, right, for you. In the term of Jimmy Garoppolo, that would be draft picks for the 49ers or potentially even a player. But you are entering a fog of war here, and it's a stare down between teams that are interested in starting quarterbacks and teams are waiting for Deshaun Watson and the 49ers. And when you're entering this fog of war, you don't want to blink too soon, right? And you also don't want to blink too late. So you try to maintain option power as long as humanly possible. So let's talk some of these dynamics because this is fascinating. Just in case we get some new viewers, I'm going to take this one off. We do know something, but we can't pretend that we know too much because this is a situation that I don't want to say unprecedented, but probably in a way there are dynamics of the situation that the NFL has never seen before because you just have so many variables that were unexpected, right? Watson completely cleared just in time by the grand jury of the criminal charges. So he swoops in as option A for a lot of teams. Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulder surgery reported a couple weeks ago. That throws a complication into things. You have different salaries for different available or potentially available quarterbacks. That throws a wrench into things as far as market value goes. And obviously you have the 49ers sitting here after having played Garoppolo, having reached the NFC Championship, now looking to constrict their cap situation so they can fit under the cap by 1 p.m. tomorrow. So there's deadlines looming, there's financial machinations looming, and there's a whole trade stare down looming, and the whole league is waiting. It's like this powder keg ready to explode with Deshaun Watson. So it's fun stuff. It's good stuff to talk about. And let's look at some questions. Let's just have a discussion here. I got my water. I'm ready to go. I got the portrait mode, the cinematic mode ready to go. I should fix my light. One of these sides, this side, it's a little too dark, right? So we're going to move the ring light. Oh, yeah. That is how we fix lighting. I am so proud of myself right now. This is cool. I love my iPhone 13. It's a good machine. The iPhone 13 definitely is getting the job done. And I also like the mic right here. So anyway, subscribe to the channel. Let's have a nice, smart, intelligent conversation. I thought about bringing on a guest tonight, But it's just too much speculation right now. I don't want to turn this into a pure speculatory show. I want to keep this reasonable. I want to answer your questions. I want the conversation to be between me and you, the audience, and not a guest. So let's go. Ian Sharp says the 49ers want a decent return on Jimmy. Some teams not offering enough. And I think right now that makes total sense because say that the Colts are interested. There are other teams right now that are looking for a quarterback. And the Indianapolis Colts, that would make them the only team that's at least somewhat interested in Jimmy Garoppolo right now, at least on the surface, because all the other teams that we know are interested in QB1 type material. And by that, I mean the Saints, the Panthers, the Browns, and the Falcons. Those guys are all focused on Deshaun Watson. They're waiting for that explosion to happen. So my cousin, his name's Clayton Congdon, he posts sometimes on Twitter, and I think I quote tweeted him about an hour ago. Clayton points out that he thinks that the Colts have an offer in for Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's pretty low. It's probably not too good. And the 49ers are waiting it out because they know that the leverage belongs with Indianapolis right now. Indianapolis is the only potential suitor in a trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. But the 49ers believe that if they wait, and if this Deshaun Watson domino falls, preferably probably to the Falcons, right? Or I don't know. It could go to many different places. Not the Browns. That wouldn't be good for the 49ers because the Browns, I think, are one team that would be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo because I don't think that they're interested in their own quarterback right now, Baker Mayfield. But depending on where and when the Watson domino falls, that will open the market back up. And then all of a sudden, you have 4 teams that are all fixated on one QB on Deshaun Watson right now. They'll be open to hearing other offers. But the 49ers have a deadline with the cap. So they're going to have to figure out other ways to get underneath it if they want to withstand this pressure, hang in the pocket like a quarterback facing a pass rush, and sit there and be ready to deal for the best offer that they get when offers do come again. So the 49ers want to wait it out to get some more leverage. That's my reading of the situation right now. But again, the reason that I put this out here, outside of that, we know nothing, is because I'm not pretending to know more than I do. I think that I'm just kind of reading the market the way that you would read the stock market or you'd read any kind of purchasers and sellers market. And I think that's where we are right now with the deadline looming tomorrow. By the way, you can check out our article up on The Athletic about all of this. Tim Kawakami also had a good article, but Matt Barrows and I invite you to check this one out for $1 a month for the next 6 months. It's in the chat section right now. All right, more comments? More questions. Let's open this up to a nice discussion. Well, I mean, this depends on the way that you look at Plan C. Of course, we knew this. This is no new information. We knew that Jimmy Garoppolo was not as good as Deshaun Watson. We knew that he was not as good as Aaron Rodgers. We knew that those 2 quarterbacks would be higher on the pecking order than Jimmy Garoppolo in any offseason quarterback musical chairs movement. So right now, the only thing that's holding up this market from being a little more open or a lot more open is the fact that Deshaun Watson is essentially holding 4 teams hostage with his decision. So this is not breaking news. I mean, Plan C sounds terrible, but anybody, with a brain would be able to tell you that Jimmy Garoppolo would be Plan C behind Aaron Rodgers, who obviously already has made his decision to stay with Green Bay, and Deshaun Watson, who people are waiting for to make a choice. So I think it's as simple as that. Do the 49ers really want 2 seconds for Jimmy? That might have been the price. I think that's what Benjamin Albright has been saying. I don't know that they're going to get that right now. That's obviously why this is not moving forward. The market will evolve, though. And again, Cleveland is an interesting situation. Baker Mayfield wrote kind of a jilted lover letter to the city of Cleveland. I wouldn't fully call it a goodbye letter, but it was almost like he saw the Cleveland Browns cheating on him with another girl, going out to dinner with Deshaun Watson, and he wanted to break up with them first. So Baker Mayfield writes the letter, posted on Twitter, And vibes of that whole situation scream, especially if you go on spaces on Twitter and you have some of the Browns writers talking about it. But the whole Cleveland vibe right now seems that they're done with Baker Mayfield, regardless of whether or not they land Deshaun Watson. And if that's the case, Kevin Stefanski's system probably suits Jimmy Garoppolo well terminology-wise. I don't think it would be too big of an adjustment for Jimmy Garoppolo to come in with the Browns. But then there's the shoulder injury. And, from the time that the shoulder injury happened, I came on and I said, it's going to depend on the medical due diligence the teams do. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo and his camp and the 49ers all swear that the surgery went well. He'll be thrown by late June. Everything will be fine and dandy. But not just the shoulder injury, his entire injury history might throw a wrench and might scare some teams in this whole quarterback musical chairs movement. But Cleveland still looks like a team to me that would be very interested in Jimmy Garoppolo's services, regardless of whether or not Deshaun Watson decides to come there. And, I don't know what the price would be, but the price would certainly change between now and maybe 24 hours from now, or now and whatever period after Deshaun Watson's made his decision. Because again, the market right now, it's clogged. That clog would free up, and then we would see what the actual market in this situation is. Okay, questions. See a lot of comments, not a lot of questions. Did teams know that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to have surgery ahead of time? No. So the deal with Jimmy Garoppolo was that he had a slight capsule tear or capsule sprain. A capsule is a ligament in your shoulder. And this is my right shoulder. And that injury is one that, depending on the severity, and Jimmy Garoppolo's was kind of right in the middle there. It wasn't this full-on tear that would require surgery. And it, wasn't the most minor sprain to where you knew that rehab was going to be the only way forward. He was kind of in the middle. So what they did is they tried rehab. And if the rehab doesn't fully take, that's when you go to surgery. So they wanted to avoid the surgery at first because that would probably make the whole trade process and everything easier. But then they realized, oh boy, this option, the non-surgical option, the rehab option, isn't working. So that's why around the time of the NFL Combine, Jimmy Garoppolo's camp decided to have the surgery. So now that's going to shelve him for a little while, but he's still going to be back in time for training camp if all continues to go well. So teams didn't find out until around the Combine that this would be the preferred path of action. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the surgery, teams would obviously make him undergo a physical if they were going to trade for him. And you'd have to pass that physical. And it'd probably be pretty hard to pass the physical if his shoulder was still hurt. So you got to get the shoulder healed so that a team is interested in acquiring you. But the problem is, to get that shoulder healed, it has now turned into a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo needs surgery, and that has a long rehab time. So you could tell that this whole situation is murky because you have rehab timelines, you have the potential of complications, you have the 49ers in one corner saying there will be no complications, as anybody trying to raise somebody's value on the trade market would say, and you have teams, just as any potential suitor would say, rightfully skeptical and trying to do their due diligence. And in this confluence of different forces, you have to find equilibrium. And when you find equilibrium, that's when you have a chance to find Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value. But we're only talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and the negotiation surrounding his injury and his potential recovery from it. We're not even talking about other quarterbacks yet at this point on the trade market. That's where Deshaun Watson comes in. So once all the injury questions are satisfied, then you have to talk about the market as a whole. And right now, Deshaun Watson is clogging that up. Hope it all makes sense. Hope that I'm properly articulating this, because it certainly is complicated, but it should be fascinating to those of you who like the business side of this. Do I really think that Jimmy takes a pay cut? He signed for $27 million. Why would a new contract be less? Can he be released with the injury? Yes, so Garoppolo can be released, but he's got an injury guarantee. $7.5 million of his salary right now is guaranteed for injury. Funny enough, that kicked in when the 49ers went to the NFC Championship game in 2019. That was part of the trigger in his contract. So say that the 49ers traded Jimmy Garoppolo right now. The acquiring team would pick up all of Jimmy Garoppolo's base salary, which is $25.5 million for the 2022 season. No questions asked. 49ers would deal with $1.4 million in dead money. But say the 49ers don't find a trade partner and they cut Jimmy Garoppolo, which is something they don't want to do. And this is why. A, they don't get any draft capital or player capital in return. B, the 49ers have to pay that $7.5 million injury guarantee because they released Jimmy Garoppolo before he's able to pass a physical. Similar problem as D Ford. That's why they can't release D Ford. They couldn't in the past because of that injury guarantee. And I mean, it's still there. They can't release D Ford because it'd be more expensive to cut him than to keep him. In the case of Garoppolo, it'd still be financially beneficial as far as the cap goes to release him. You would still get back $18 million, but you'd have to pay the 7.5 million plus the 1.4 million dead money charge. 8.9 million it would cost if you released Jimmy Garoppolo. It would cost only 1.4 million if you traded him. So trading him is obviously the way to go moving forward because you want to maximize efficiency of this whole financial operation. So I don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo takes a pay cut, at least yet right now. There is a world in which a trade is not consummated for whatever reason, probably some of these medical concerns, due diligence, and the 49ers carry him on their roster to start the new league year tomorrow, and they feel that they need to keep Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster for longer to maximize a trade return for him. And, you know, they essentially feel it's worth it to have those two quarterbacks on the roster for whatever reason. And Jimmy Garoppolo also finds it beneficial to stay on the 49ers roster, but the 49ers say, hey, if this is going to work out, we need it to happen at a lower cap number. That's the case in which I would see a pay cut as something being possible, but we're not at that point yet. We're still quite far from that point. What we need to happen right now is we need, you know, the road is clogged. There, a bunch of rocks have fallen down onto the road. There's been kind of a mudslide or whatever you want to call it. But there's a bunch of rocks clogging the road. And the Deshaun Watson trade, that's like dynamite. You know, there's workers putting dynamite into those rocks. And we need that dynamite to blow up. We need that Deshaun Watson trade to happen to clear the road again so the road can flow. And then once the road can flow, we can see what's on the other side of the rocks, right? But right now we're just staring at the rocks. And the Deshaun Watson trade needs to happen. The rocks need to blow up before we move forward. That's my only way of really illustrating where we are right now. So it's too soon to talk about a Jimmy Garoppolo pay cut to stay with the 49ers. That's still far out. Plan A is still to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Lynch talked about plan A, plan B, plan C. Plan A is still to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, start Trey Lance in 2022. That much is obvious. But the 49ers are also going to proceed to do what's best for their team at any given moment of time. And right now that market is a little bit clogged. Doesn't mean that it can't be unclogged, though, moving forward. Jimmy G. Colts from Raiders Rundown with Wi-Fi Willie. Wi-Fi Willie, cool. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo and the Colts, that was the initial clubhouse favorite. I think if you had betting odds, the Browns are moving up that list right now for Jimmy Garoppolo, even though they're in on Deshaun Watson, which makes this all kind of incestuous, right? This whole sweepstakes is, you know, we got to wait for that Watson domino to fall. But I think the Colts are probably still interested in Garoppolo. I think that they're happily noting that that price has fallen. And they probably think that the 49ers might be encouraged to blink sooner rather than later and just get rid of Garoppolo for whatever they can get. But the 49ers are happy to hang in the pocket until the last possible minute, extend the play, try to see if they can get under the cap, carry Garoppolo, extend the play so that you can get a better deal from the Colts potentially, or maybe, you know, once the Cleveland Browns are part of this, right? If Deshaun Watson, say, you know, decides to go to the New Orleans Saints, doesn't displace a quarterback anywhere, he goes to the Saints. You know, you don't displace Taysom Hill or whatever. That's Taysom Hill with the Saints. But say that, you just hypothetical purposes, Watson ends up with the Saints. Then say that the Cleveland Browns break up with Baker Mayfield, as looks like might happen. All of a sudden, it's not just the Colts who are interested in Jimmy Garoppolo and at a lower price. It's also theoretically the Cleveland Browns who might be interested in Jimmy Garoppolo and maybe some other teams after this impasse breaks. So if the Colts are lowballing the 49ers right now, they may not be able to lowball the 49ers anymore once the market also includes Cleveland as a potential buyer, if that makes sense. So Colts possible, yes. They were the betting favorites for a while. We'll see what happens moving forward, though. The Colts, their Colts people are talking about wanting Baker Mayfield, and maybe he's their clubhouse leader. Maybe this is as simple as a quarterback swap between teams. Maybe the Browns would be better with Garoppolo. The Colts would be better with Mayfield. Everybody wins. Deshaun Watson ends up wherever out of those other suitors. I don't know. Again, there's only so much that we know. And outside of that, we know nothing. So we could just talk about these machinations, but this is just to prepare you. We just sit here and prepare for this market to explode, and we'll see what happens after that. I'm not making any guarantees. I'm not making any promises. I'm just enjoying this ride while we're here. Baker doesn't get a say in where he gets traded. No, but the Browns and, a potential suitor gets a say in where they get traded. I think what I'm implying is not that Baker wants to play for Indianapolis or whatever. I'm implying that Indianapolis may want Baker Mayfield. They may like the youth, right? I mean, he's on his 5th-year option coming up this year. With Baker Mayfield, it's $18 million this year, right? So you would have to find another suitor for that $18 million. But I think that given the youth, given the fact that you can offer him extension, if you wanted to lower the cap hit moving forward, if you have a team that believes they can work with his talent, they'd be happy to take him. And it might be Frank Reich. It might be the Indianapolis Colts. They might think that Baker Mayfield is a better model citizen for their operation than Carson Wentz was. And they obviously rid it themselves of Carson Wentz. So no, it's not up to Baker, but it's up to the teams that are discussing this. And the latest development, that awfully emo tweet from Baker Mayfield, meant that, maybe the time in Cleveland is coming to an end. After they were broadcasting the opposite there for a while, the Combine, they sent out the message that Baker's their guy. Well, they just went on a date with Deshaun Watson. So I don't know if Baker's their guy. Especially considering the drama that really escalated with Baker's message. Why do you think Stephon Gilmore is still available? And do you think the Niners might be in play if they make more cap moves or trades? Stephon Gilmore is probably still available, because the market for free agents really hasn't moved all too much. There's still a lot of talented players out there, but let's remember that Stephon Gilmore is 32 years old. The 49ers were in on the Gilmore sweepstakes. They wanted him closer to $10 million. They ended up getting Charvarius Ward for, we have to see the structure, but agents take $14 million APY. They weren't willing to pay a 32-year-old corner that much money. They wanted to get Gilmore more of a discount because injuries have been a concern for him. The age is obviously a concern for him. 49ers got Charvarius Ward, a corner who's 25 going on 26. Who doesn't have that injury history, who obviously is statistically really good in Ward. They went with the younger guy, and I think that's a more sustainable move. Stephon Gilmore probably holding out for a little bit more money, seeing how much the top of the market got, and J.C. Jackson, right? $16 million, I think it was, for J.C. Jackson. This is the last chance in all likelihood at age 32 for a guy like Stephon Gilmore to really cash out, maybe with a 3-year deal worth 13 or 14 million. 49ers weren't willing to pay that much. So they went to Ward, and we'll see what Gilmore can get. I don't think that, the cap is going up. Teams are going to have spending money. Somebody's going to spend close to what Gilmore wants because he's got a name. He's got some of that pedigree. So I don't see the 49ers. The 49ers bringing in another corner. It's going to be a guy like Jason Verrett, who they can get on a deal close to the minimum. I mean, the 49ers are up against the cap. Let's be honest. They're not in a position to pay another guy $10 million. They couldn't pay Laken Tomlinson. He got out of their budget. DJ Jones got out of their budget. They prioritize that cornerback position more than the guard or the defensive tackle position. So it made sense they paid Charvarius Ward. But they only prioritize cornerback 1. They don't prioritize CB2 nearly as much. This is a rush over coverage team. They have their CB1. Gilmore's not going to come to the 49ers. Looking for more questions. Gilmore to safety. I guess that's what the Bucks tried with Sherman last year. Yeah, it depends if you think Gilmore's slowing down. I think when he's actually playing and healthy, he's still a plus cornerback. So I think it's premature to talk about that. The question is, do you want to invest in a 32-year-old corner? And the question and the answer to that normally is, oh boy, we better be careful about that. Something about the Watson trade right here. I believe there is. I believe the 49ers are interested in Raheem Mostert at the right price. I think that once the Watson trade is announced, there will be a flood of activity. Quarterbacks and other top free agents will be available. Yes. Again, we're sitting on a powder keg. It's about to blow. It's going to be crazy. Chandler Jones is still out there. I mean, he's obviously one of the guys that we think the 49ers should be interested in, right? He's going to cost some money. But once quarterbacks start moving, if the 49ers get Garoppolo off the books and Chandler Jones is excited about where the 49ers are as a team, building the roster, 9 draft picks coming up at the end of April to build a sustainable roster. They're getting ready to take care of Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, and Chandler Jones says, I want to play opposite Nick Bosa under Chris Kacerek, who's a big selling point. Maybe the 49ers have a chance to get Chandler Jones in a backloaded deal. But Chandler might be waiting to see where Deshaun Watson goes, just to sort things out, not necessarily to follow Deshaun Watson to a team, but to see how the league and all these machinations work. Because you're making big money decisions. This is guys' livelihood. And millions of dollars are on the line. Legacies are on the line. I don't blame some of these bigger free agents for wanting to know where the top player available, the top available player at the most important position wants to go, and that's Deshaun Watson. I don't blame Chandler Jones for wanting to know that about the market, because Chandler Jones has options, so then he can make the most educated decision for himself and for his family about where to play. There's a human aspect to all of this. And the human aspect, if you're going out and looking for a job, you're going to want all the potential information about the job market, especially if the job is worth potentially tens of millions of dollars. You're going to want all the potential information about that job market before you make your decision. And if you have a chance to wait to make your decision, to make the best possible decision possible, didn't mean to say possible twice. If you have a chance to wait it out and really get that advantage in that chess match against the rest of the market, you're going to do that. So some of these high-priced guys like Chandler Jones have that luxury right now. And I think that Deshaun Watson and his movement is connected to absolutely everything around the league. And you don't often see stuff be so intertwined. But just the way that this stare down has worked between teams, because you have more teams interested in making quarterback changes than there are available quarterbacks. The quarterback draft is not looking so hot this year, definitely a lot worse than the 2021 draft. Because of all these dynamics, there is a lot of waiting and seeing right now. And yes, the start of the new league year will bring some deadline pressure. You need some deadline pressure to whip everything into shape and to get the process moving. And that's why tomorrow is so exciting. And that's why we're sitting here at 9 p.m. on Tuesday evening, just talking and just having a good time. That's a great point from Brandon Hill, regular viewer. All right. Deebo and Bosa both getting 5-year contracts. Yeah, well, I think that if you sign Bosa and Deebo Samuel to big money, you're going to want to stretch out the cap hit as much as possible. Now, by rule in the NFL, you give a guy a big signing bonus. That signing bonus only hits the cap in an amortized amount every single year. So say you give Bosa a $100 million signing bonus and you give Bosa a 5-year contract. $20 million would hit the cap of that signing bonus every year. $20 million in year 1, $20 million in year 2, all the way up to 5 years for that $100 million total. He's not going to get a $100 million signing bonus. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. The maximum amortization period is 5 years, so you can't stretch a contract out over 6. You can give a guy a 6 or 7 year deal, but it makes no sense from cap purposes. You can't stretch out that, but you can, like with Fred Warner, he was essentially under contract for 6 years because the 49ers gave him a deal early and maintained that final year of his rookie deal, although they had fudged around some numbers. They gave him 2 bonuses. They gave him a signing bonus immediately that stretched out over 5 years. And then in 2022, when the new league year starts tomorrow, a second bonus will kick in. It's a second guaranteed bonus for Fred Warner, will kick in over the next 5 years. 2 separate bonuses worth about $12.5 million each. They add up into $25 million. And it's a way for the 49ers to cleverly stretch Warner's cap hits over 6 years instead of just 5. So I think that, yes, to answer your question, Deebo and Bosa both get 5-year deals. But I think the 49ers, especially with Deebo, whose contractual situation, not being a first-round pick, is going to look very similar to Fred Warner's. You do something similar as you did with Fred Warner. And by that, I mean you give him a second bonus that doesn't kick in until the year after, and there may be a buyback bonus in there. I mean, this is all financial wizardry. I know it's hard to explain. I've explained it in my articles on The Athletic, though, and I put little charts out there, and I know some people enjoy that. It's going to be about financial wizardry for the 49ers because they're currently $5 million over the cap. If Azeez Al-Shaair signs his tender, if Daniel Brunskill signs his tender, if Charvarius Ward finalizes his contract, I don't even know what the cap hit there for 2022 is going to be, at least $6 million. Well, the 49ers will suddenly be what, about 14, 15 million over? They got to find a way to get under the cap. And then we bring back Jimmy Garoppolo into the fold. They want to keep their assets. They can trade him once the market clears up. Well, then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, how do we get 15 more million under the cap? Well, you do it through stretching out cap hits through bonuses. And if they do pay Bosa and Samuel this offseason, they're going to want to stretch those out as much as possible. And they may have to apply some of those techniques to players that are currently under big contracts through restructures. So it's going to be a game of Tetris that the 49ers have to get done here over the next several hours, essentially, to get under the cap by 1 p.m. tomorrow. Sunshine good. The Browns have a great roster. Jimmy will succeed there. People are anointing Joe Burrow, but Jimmy beat him. I think Jimmy is underrated. He'll definitely have a chip and be great. I mean, I think it's very clear that Garoppolo is underrated. He wins a lot. He's efficient. He worked well within Kyle Shanahan's system. There's a reason why the 49ers won with Jimmy Garoppolo and lost without him over the past 5 years. Now, that being said, he is also limited in some physical ways. A, he's not a quote-unquote mobile quarterback. And B, yes, he has gotten hurt a lot. There is a fragility there that teams probably are a little bit of afraid of. But there's also the anti-Carson Wentz effect. I mean, this guy galvanizes locker rooms. Obviously, he wins football games. Carson Wentz didn't win enough. No matter how physically talented he was with Indianapolis, they got their asses kicked by Jacksonville, and boom, Carson Wentz got traded. He's now with Washington. So there is a value to Garoppolo, but it might be a little harder to put your finger on it because he's not 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a former FCS guy that looks like a former FCS guy. Carson Wentz is a former FCS guy that looks like a former SEC guy at his size, and teams are intrigued by that physical prowess. So there's a good chance that Stefanski might be intrigued by Jimmy Garoppolo if they do indeed let go of Baker Mayfield. And hey, throughout every single portion of his career, and I guess Mayfield's been hurt too, so this is an apples and apples comparison. Garoppolo's been better than Mayfield. He's been a more efficient quarterback than Mayfield. He's made fewer mistakes, higher upside. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield's always been the underdog type physically. He's not the Carson Wentz at 6'5", 230. It makes total sense to me why the Colts the Browns would want to move on from Baker Mayfield, and it would make total sense if they wanted to hop onto the Jimmy Garoppolo train. But it also makes sense if they shied away from it because of the shoulder, right? So that's kind of the big wild card that's thrown in here. We have to see what medical due diligence means for different teams. I wonder what Gavin Gerford. I'm curious what team you're a fan of. Are you a Browns fan? Banging for no Jimmy G. I guess I put Browns into the title, so we might have some people here from different teams. I think Mike just texted me saying that we have people from other fan bases. So welcome. I normally talk about the 49ers, but I talk about the rest of the league too, especially when we have fans from other teams. So go ahead. You guys can talk shit to each other and keep the comment section civil. I mean, you could jab at each other in good nature, but those of you who don't know me, David Lombardi, I cover the 49ers for The Athletic, and we sit here and we talk about the 49ers a lot. So welcome. Glad that you're on the show. I'll talk more NFL-wide stuff if you want me to, and I also talk about food a lot. So hit that subscribe button if you're new. Would really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying your night. The Niners did get further than the GOAT last year. I really wanted to see Garoppolo Brady in the NFC title game. That would have been cool. Just for storyline purposes. I thought it was going to happen when Brady was leading that comeback against the Rams, but then we had to see Niners-Rams Part 3. Also a great game. I mean, you couldn't be mad about the entertainment level of the NFL last year. On both sides, NFC, AFC, those playoffs are magical. And for 49ers fans, I mean, it was just had to be something completely surreal. You know what I was thinking about the other day? I am going to share a screen right now, and I'll show you what I was thinking about. We can go down memory lane here. We can make this a little bit more casual. We'll look at some old articles, some old pictures, talk some good stuff. So this is the article that Matt Barrows and I have out right now in 49ers free agency, $1 a month for The Athletic. I'm putting it in to the chat section, but we're going to go into the article archive. I'm going to hide this comment. Thank you, Tommy. I know you're a regular viewer. This is the one that I saw the other day, and God, I've written a lot since this happened. This is insane. It seems like it was just yesterday, but then it also feels like it was 10 years ago. This is all the pre-NFC title game stuff. Here it is. This was one of the coolest pieces I ever got to write. Shattering through the snow globe inside the 49ers' final drive heroics to win at Green Bay. I mean, let's just sit back and appreciate how fun this past NFL season was. The 49ers literally played in a 0-degree snow globe, and they beat Green Bay on the frozen tundra at Lambeau Field in a game that defied all of Twitter's preconceived narratives, especially about Jimmy Garoppolo late and Aaron Rodgers and all this and all that. I mean, just the entertainment value was so compelling. I mean, the week before this, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys ran the clock out on themselves. And then they got mad at the refs for doing that. They called a quarterback draw with 14 seconds left with no timeouts, expecting everything to somehow be okay. I mean, I'm just talking about the 49ers journey through the playoffs. But obviously on the other side, you had the Bengals going through tightrope act situations on a week-to-week basis. That game against the Chiefs was crazy. I was watching that game against the Chiefs from just outside the 49ers locker room at SoFi Stadium. You're in the tunnel. The door's right there, so the players are going in and out. They had this little TV set up. The players weren't watching it. They were getting ready for the game against the Rams, which is going to come later. But I was able to watch the end of that Bengals-Chiefs game on this little TV. And, God, just the convergence of drama during the playoffs was so cool. And now we have this convergence of drama into the offseason. The NFL truly owns 365 days of the year. 15 more comments are in there. David, would you rather have 6 straight regular season wins or 1 significant win against the Rams? Well, I think the 49ers have had plenty of significant wins against the Rams. I mean, week 18, that was a significant win against the Rams. I mean, they usually beat the Rams. They just lost to them the one time they played an NFC championship game. You tip your hat to the Rams if you're the 49ers, and you move on and you try to beat them next year. It's a good competition. You know, it's men competing. I mean, it's a good rivalry right now. The 49ers and the Rams don't like each other. Niners got them, 6 straight times? And that included week 18, which I think meant a lot more than just the regular season to the 49ers because it meant their season. They don't go to the playoffs, so they don't win week 18. The Rams wanted to clinch. They didn't get it. That was hard-fought football. Close game. 49ers won by 3. Guess what? Another close game a couple weeks later in the NFC title. Rams win by 3. The show goes on. That's how sports work. You don't always get it to go your way. So I think that you know, it happened the way that it happened, and the 49ers would rather have had it go the other way. They obviously would rather have won the NFC championship game over a regular season game. But guess what? They don't make it to the NFC championship game if they don't beat the Rams in those regular season games. So, I mean, it's kind of an unfair hypothetical to put out there. Would the 49ers ever cut Jimmy? You know, I don't think they want to because that's not the financially optimal way to go. And I think that at some point there is going to be a return for him. I think you're at a roadblock at an inopportune time right now because of the deadline for finances. But I think the 49ers, Parag Marathe has done a good job for the 49ers as far as structuring contracts, giving the 49ers flexibility to cross whatever bridge they might want to cross at any given time, right? So when Lynch talked about plan A, plan B, and plan C at the combine, yes, plan A is to trade Garoppolo as soon as you can for a high price, start Trey Lance, have the money to do whatever the hell you want in the offseason. But it's not always, roses. It's not always going to work along the way of the plan that you initially forecasted it to work. Sometimes you're going to have to deviate from that plan. Sometimes you're going to have to go to plan B. Plan C, maybe plan D, but I think it's mainly plan B and plan C. And maybe the 49ers are going to have to do that and carry Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster. And I think they have the ability to do that. I don't think they have to cut him. Now, there is a world in which, something might happen and they're in a financial pinch. It's like, oh my God, we need these $17 or $18 million right now. And you go to plan E, plan F, whatever it is, and you do cut Jimmy Garoppolo. You eat that $7.5 million injury guarantee and you move forward. But the reason that this is so beautiful from not just a sports standpoint, but also from a business standpoint is because there are constantly options, and option power makes you stronger. So if you set yourself up to have the option power, then just like any business in the real world, you are in a stronger position. But for us as analysts and you as fans and, just anybody who loves football, who loves the business aspect of it, or, is just now becoming part of the business aspect of it, if this is now like intriguing you, it's so cool to sit there and chart out the decision tree and the options as the 49ers move forward, because they're constantly evolving. So you have to be on your toes. You have to be ready. It's like an actual game, except it's being played on the spreadsheet. It's being played through the telephone, through Zoom calls, or whatever people use to communicate now in the offseason. In the NFL Combine, there are face-to-face discussions. I'm sure the 49ers planted some seeds, but I'm also sure that they still have some more work to do before they could bring a trade to consummation. Well, so this is a random question. Will Stafford go to a Pro Bowl next season? Are you saying, well, he would go to the Pro Bowl if he qualified for 1A and the Rams didn't make the Super Bowl B. But I don't know. Can't really answer that one. We'll see. I thought Stafford obviously played well down the stretch. He had a great game against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. He delivered in the Super Bowl. I give him credit because he struggled there for a little bit through the middle of that season. And the Rams were able to peak at the right time, get that win over the 49ers, and obviously beat the Bengals. New viewers, I'm sure the NFL-wide view of the NFL sees this a lot more clearly probably than a lot of 49ers fans who just kind of irrationally hate Jimmy Garoppolo. But the Bengals and the 49ers saw their seasons end in eerily similar ways. They both ended with their quarterback having no chance against Aaron Donald and being thrown to the ground by number 99. In both instances, Jimmy Garoppolo in the NFC Championship game and Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl made a desperation heave. Garoppolo's had a chance. It bounced off of JaMychal Hasty's hands and helmet and then was intercepted. Burrow's on fourth down didn't have much of a chance, but both quarterbacks were in these impossible situations thanks to the fact that their offensive line couldn't block Aaron Donald. And, when we talk about Matt Stafford and, what he did, well, Matt Stafford had, at the end of the day, he had the most overpowering player on the football field on his team. No offense to Nick Bosa, who was drawing some triple teams down the stretch there. But Donald was changing football games, and maybe the Rams had a little bit more depth on their defensive line than the 49ers did on their retooled version that really peaked at the end. But 49ers were playing a little bit more money ball with their defensive line. The Rams were out there. They weren't playing money ball. They were playing very aggressive, let's, acquire superstars on their defensive line. They had Von Miller there. They had Leonard Floyd there. They had Aaron Donald there. And they just had a little more in the gas tank than the 49ers or the Bengals did. They were able to corral both Garoppolo and Burrow when it really matters. Now, the Rams, they were very shrewd last year. They got the Denver Broncos to pay Von Miller's salary after they traded for him. That's how they were able to fit under the cap. Everybody's like, oh, what does the cap not apply to the Rams? It's like, it applies to everybody. The Rams just lost Sebastian Joseph Day, nose tackle, who is cheaper than DJ Jones. So obviously the cap is hurting the Rams too. They would have loved to have kept Joseph Day. Would have been easier theoretically, in a vacuum to keep him than DJ Jones. And the Niners lost DJ Jones, but the Rams lost a player. The Rams lost a ton of players in 2021 before the season started due to the cap. But what you have to give the Rams credit for is how they reloaded even after they suffered those losses. And one of the ways they reloaded is that they got the Broncos to pay Von Miller's salary. Of course, you can get under the salary cap and stay under it if Denver is the one footing the bill. So the challenge for the 49ers and for other teams who are kind of in this cap constriction phase right now, who have to jettison some players that they like Laken Tomlinson, like DJ Jones, the key is to find efficient ways to replace them. For the 49ers, it's once in a blue moon that you're able to get another team to play Von Miller's salary for you and go and win a Super Bowl. I think that the Rams got a very nice deal on that. Credit to them. Credit to Les Snead for getting that. Normally, you have to refill and reload in other ways. And that, for the 49ers, their plan is the draft. The 49ers, 9 draft picks, and they just got 4 comp picks. One of the, they have 5 total, but one's being shipped to Miami for that trade up to number 3 from last year, ironically to Mike McDaniel, who's now the coach there. But the 49ers have 9 draft picks. I've said this many times on my shows before. The 49ers will pay a grand total of $7.6 million in the cap in 2022 for 9 players. DJ Jones' average per year is $10 million. Laken Tomlinson's average per year, $13 million. The 49ers will pay 9 players less than DJ Jones or Laken Tomlinson will make in 2022. Those 9 players combined are cheaper. So you reload efficiently through the draft. So yes, the cap does exist. This offseason's been proof. And even the Rams are proof. The Rams are also proof that you can get around the cap if you spend efficiently and you get Denver to pay Von Miller's contract. If everybody could get other team to play a star, hey, say the 49ers convince the Seattle Seahawks to pay Nick Bosa's contract. Nick Bosa still plays for them. It's a good deal for the 49ers, right? Well, the Rams saw something similar on a little smaller scale, obviously, because Miller didn't make as much as Nick Bosa will on his next deal. But the Rams saw something similar this year. So many comments. Questions. Yeah, how about you guys smash the like button? I would love that. Maybe we'll go for an hour. Maybe I'll call it quits now. We're about 700 people, which I really love. This is a lot of fun to do. Again, subscribe to The Athletic. And here's a question from Kiyoki Ayona. Is the 49ers not really doing any more moves due to Jimmy payout costing them? I don't think so. I think the 49ers can agree in principle to any move right now. I mean, they haven't signed Charvarius Ward yet. They've agreed to sign Charvarius Ward, but he's not counting against their cap. In fact, he can't sign until 1 p.m. tomorrow officially when the new year starts. Charvarius Ward is still under contract and still a member of the Kansas City Chiefs right now. He will not be a member of the San Francisco 49ers until he signs a deal, and that he can only sign a deal once he's no longer under contract with the Chiefs, and that's at 1 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So the 49ers can theoretically agree to terms with other players and tell them, we'll pay you a little bit later after we figure out this Garoppolo situation. Would the players appreciate that? Maybe not. But would they be willing to do that if they like the 49ers contract offer? Yes. And the 49ers have other recourses other than cutting or trading Garoppolo to get under that limit. So the answer to your question in short is no. I just, with Laken Tomlinson and DJ Jones, the 49ers had a limit. The 49ers weren't going to pay more than $10 million or so for Laken Tomlinson, and they weren't going to pay more than $7 or $8 million for DJ Jones. That's how the 49ers have always operated at the defensive tackle and the guard positions. Both of those guys blew past that number, $13 million for Laken, $10 million for DJ. You say good for you if you're the 49ers, and you move on. People online talking about a Baker for Jimmy trade, Bill Barnwell. I can't decide whether a Baker for Jimmy trade would be a win-win or a lose-lose. People are funny. I think they got the jokes. The 49ers get the $7.5 million back in cap space if Jimmy is cut and signs with another team. That much, good sir, Drew Hubbs? I don't know. I know there are offsets, and the offsets might help the 49ers if he is indeed cut and signs with another team. John Lynch mentioned those offsets when I talked to him at the Combine, but I don't know exactly what the offsets are. And they might be partial offsets, so the 49ers might be on the hook for $4 million of it, $2 million of it. I don't know. Regardless of offsets and where millions of dollars of injury guarantees might end up going against the 49ers cap, the main thing to remember is that if the 49ers trade Jimmy Garoppolo, they will get a return for Jimmy Garoppolo. If they don't trade him, they will not get a return for Jimmy Garoppolo. They'd be cutting him before the end of his contract, which would also mean that he would not factor into the compensatory pick formula for 2023. That means that trading Jimmy Garoppolo is clearly advantageous to releasing him. That's all that I can say right now. Does Jimmy Garoppolo have a legacy, or does he deserve a legacy by going to a playoff team? Well, this is a loaded question. I think Jimmy Garoppolo's legacy right now is a good quarterback, a good teammate that wins a lot of football games, but hasn't quite been able to drag a team across the finish line to a title. Fair or not, that's his legacy. If he goes somewhere else and wins a Super Bowl, that legacy is going to change to the Super Bowl champion. I mean, Matthew Stafford, his legacy changed when the Rams won this year. And legacy debates are often not fair. They're often not scientific. They rely a lot on, that team's success. It's a team sport, but quarterback is the most important position of this team sport. So I think, in reasonable observers' opinions, the thing about Garoppolo is he came from an FCS school. He's not Carson Wentz physically. He's not your 6'5", 230-pound rifle-armed gunslinger. He's got a little bit of that underdog chip on his shoulder. He was only offered by, the FCS in Eastern Illinois. He wasn't offered by an FBS school. He came out and he learned under Brady. So he obviously developed some guile in that situation in New England. He saw a lot of success with the 49ers. That's impossible to deny. But his legacy has also been marred by injuries, fair or not, his fault or not, right? So it's a complex legacy, but at the end of the day, the teams that he's played for have been better when he has played than when he hasn't. And it's been a significant gap. So that's all you can say right now. And I think the main thing to say about Garoppolo's legacy is that it remains unfinished. We move on to the next chapter, very likely not with the 49ers, very likely somewhere else, and we'll find out exactly where that will be. As a Detroit fan, I love that Stafford got the big win. He was never going to get there with our past coaching staff. And then from all I understand, Stafford's a good dude. Detroit fans seem to be happy for him. He got the job done. Yes, Jimmy has 2 rings, but that's not part of his legacy. He was a backup to Tom Brady for those rings. We all know that. You got to win a ring as the starting quarterback if you want to have a legacy discussion involving a Super Bowl championship. David, do you think Jimmy will be traded tomorrow and a deal's done, but it's just been quiet? I think an offer might be there, but I don't think the 49ers like it from Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis is like, okay, sure, give him to us if it comes cheap for a 6th rounder or something like that. I think the 49ers are waiting for that market to blow up, get bigger. Nobody knows the exact timing, which is why the 49ers must be prepared to buy more time in case that Deshaun Watson thing takes longer, in case it takes that market, 5 hours instead of 3 hours to clear up after 1 p.m. You have to be ready to carry Jimmy Garoppolo on the ship that sails at 1 o'clock. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. We've been on for 56 minutes. I'm going to try to power through for 4 more minutes, but I could stay on for longer. I mean, if we get this thing up to 800, I'll keep on going because this is cool. I don't think I've ever had this many viewers on a live. But this is fun for me, interacting with some of the fans. I'm a Lombardi himself on Twitter. May or may not be related to Vince, maybe only by name. I get free drinks in Green Bay. The problem is I usually have to work when I'm in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. I'm not there as a fan. This year it was really cold when I was there for the playoffs. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. Those of you who just joined, this is the Snow Globe article I got to write in Green Bay. That was so fun. I was the last person in Lambeau Field that night. Left at 3 a.m. Stayed in a really sketchy kind of drug motel. Wasn't good in Appleton, Wisconsin. It was a roadway inn that had previously been a Motel 6, and it was in the midst of rebranding. So it didn't have any signs on it. So you weren't sure if it was a roadway inn or a Motel 6. But I stayed there. The walls were thin. It was creaky. It was one of those rooms where the sink was in your room. There wasn't like a separate bathroom for the sink to be in there. And I didn't sleep in there. I just decided to make YouTube lives all night after covering the 49ers and the Packers. So that's my crazy travel story from this year. Other than that, I'm just happy right now at home talking some NFL football. We've gone through a lot this past hour. And as soon as I started talking about the roadway inn in Appleton, Wisconsin, I noticed that people started logging off. People started getting bored. So that's good. Could a trade come tonight? No, the reason I don't think a trade won't come tonight is because Atlanta is still meeting with Deshaun Watson tomorrow. So you have the Saints, the Panthers, the Browns, and the Falcons all in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. The Panthers, the Browns, and the Saints have all met with him. The Falcons meet with him tomorrow, and Watson will decide, presumably after the last meeting. I don't think that a trade can happen until Watson moves because I think the 49ers are adamant about this. The 49ers are going to sit there, and they're going to wait till this market opens up. And because of that, I think you go to sleep tonight without a trade happening. Now watch something happen and everything go crazy. But that's just the way that I think this is going to go. All right, everybody, thank you. Please do subscribe. We've been on for 58 minutes and 49 seconds. And I'll talk. The Browns are signing Pro Bowl return man and wide receiver Jakeem Grant to a 3-year deal worth up to $13.8 million from Tom Pelissero. The 49ers had been interested in Jakeem Grant. 3 years, $13.8 million. That's what? Somewhere between $4 and $5 million per year. 49ers, I mean, they still may be in on Ray McLeod. So let's see if the 49ers can get that done. But I really think the new special teams coordinator, Brian Schneider, wants to upgrade that special teams unit. I mean, they already got Oren Burks today, linebacker, who's a good special teams player. Unbelievable. But the 49ers still need a returner. It just kicked me out. Anyway, I wanted to say bye. We got 20 more seconds, then we hit the hour. So anyway, everybody subscribe to the channel. It's been great. Hopefully I've informed you about the powder keg that's about to blow up in the NFL, Deshaun Watson, and then everything else. That's what the league is looking for. All right, guys. Thank you. You've been awesome. Biggest crowd ever. Let's make it even bigger next time. It's been exactly an hour. It's time to go. Everybody have a good night wherever in the country or the world you may be.